So today we will be looking into some demonstration about vulnerability assessment tool, which is Nessus. A lot of things are changing with the way that we get access to the free tools. I will try my best to explain you how to get it and install it. But any kind of problems that you face while doing the practicals, I would urge all of you to help each other in resolving the problems. AWS will seem difficult at first for the first time users. It might sound a little complicated. It is not, but obviously because there are ways, so many options, it might sound a little complicated. So that is the initial struggle. And then installing Nessus and running scan and reading the results. That is the second part of the challenge. So I hope you will help each other in resolving any kind of technical problems, issues that you see. Also, I would recommend right now to take notes, write down the steps rather than doing it along with me so that you don't lose focus. Right. So if you start doing it along with me, then you might end up achieving the result, but you'll not know how you did it. So you will not be able to repeat all the steps again on your own. But if you take notes, at least you have something solid, and little bit here and there, you will figure out how to do the tasks. So focus on the demonstration and focus on taking notes, and you can practice it later. So, all right. Sure, Srikanth, I will definitely share it when I have something to share. Sandeep, sorry about that. I should have done this over weekend. I will share them. Guys, recording is not an option. Please try to understand. We definitely want people to attend the live class. I know it's important class today, but again, it just needs more focus. Right. So, and you guys really don't understand how to become a technical person. Can anybody tell me what exactly make an expert? Especially in technology, how does one become expert? Okay. A lot of things that you're saying is right. A lot of things that way to become an expert. So in other way, what I always say is, in fact, recently I was undergoing a training. That means I was a student in taking part in a training. So there also I said this, I made the same statement. And the thing is that the more you struggle during your learning, the more issues you face during your learning or even on job is what is going to make you an expert. Otherwise, everything else is in the guide. Everything else as to how to do the job, like where to click, where to navigate, right? So, and how to configure certain things. All of these is already there in the guide. So by knowing steps, you're not going to become an expert because those are all documented. What is going to make you an expert throughout your career is facing difficulties, facing technical issues, and trying to solve them. Today, the difference between an expert and a normal professional, technical professional, is that the expert has faced almost all kinds of issues and he can give you the resolution in a matter of minutes. Whereas a person, a technical person who has just followed the guide and not faced much difficulty, he will not become he will never become an expert. I mean, whatever it's, let's say the saying goes, right? So smooth seas never make a great sailor. That's how it is. Even when I was recently attending a training, when I was doing my labs, I told the trainer that I want to face difficulties. In fact, I screwed up the lab myself because when we screw up the lab or don't do it correctly, will the trainer come and tell some extra things? Otherwise, everybody is following the guide, next, click, finish. Yes, we know we got it done. And the trainings are designed in such a way that like everything will work smoothly. But I purposefully used to mess up the training so that the trainer will come and explain and he will figure out what the problem is. And I learn how he will figure out the process he uses to figure out the problem. And that makes me learn more. So if you want an easy guide, then again, I will say, if you're relying on recordings, guys, I would recommend not even attend this training because everything that I'm doing here, there are a lot better videos covered. For example, firewall, go and check YouTube. There are awesome, beautiful animated videos out there. There are videos that goes deep dive into how to write a firewall rule. You really don't need to attend these classes if you just need to know things. Right. So the main part of attending this class every day, tell me honestly, how many days have you spent learning new things for 2 hours in the past before attending these classes? How many days consistently you have spent spending 2 hours in a day? So you would have hardly done that. Now, what you are basically doing by attending these classes is that you are getting discipline. So you wake up early morning, you sit, you learn for 2 hours every day, and that is what is going to bring the change. Not the knowledge. The knowledge is already there. The knowledge was already there even before you started attending the class. In fact, most of the most of the topics that we have covered, everything is in YouTube. You don't even need the recordings. The change is in you. Basically, you are waking up. How many of you are waking up early for this class? Now, trust me, when we have the recordings, this discipline will go away. Right. So, and we are not against recordings. We used to give recordings for all the paid classes. Yes, because some people used to genuinely miss. Some people used to attend from different parts of the world. But here we say we're giving it free. If you don't attend it one batch, come and again attend at the second batch. But the beauty of learning is that you need to, let's say, you don't have to understand everything because some of the things you'll have to figure out yourself. And that's what makes you an expert. So considering all these things, see, Patrick is attending every day 2:30 a.m. Akash is continuing after night shifts. So I appreciate your discipline, guys. And again, let's say recording wise, I would definitely strongly recommend anybody not to record the classes, but it's up to you guys. I cannot stop it. We are not against it, but it is you are basically killing the purpose of live classes, and you are basically killing the motivation and the discipline of people. So you're basically indirectly you are pulling people down. All right, guys. So focus. Let's say considering that, that's why I told you to write the steps, because writing the steps, what will happen? Okay, Nanda is also continuing after night shifts. Excellent. What will happen when you write down the steps is that you write down the steps, and when you try to do it practically yourself, you will face some difficulty. And I want you to experience that. I want you to experience that. What will happen in the recordings? You see where I click, you go and click there. You pause my video, you go and click there. And again, you come back to the video, see where I clicked, you go back and click the same thing. Is it learning? Is this how you want to learn? So understand what we are doing, and please pray for technical difficulties. That is the only difference between an expert and an average technical person. Even when we're talking about programming skills, a person who has faced a lot of issues will become an expert, right? So logic, for everything, we have logics available today. Even in fact, let's say the libraries are already there. Unless you are, let's say, trying to develop some new language, coding is coding. And let's say a coder will become better only when he faces lots of issues, difficulties, errors, right? So again, this is not just for one class, or this is not just for the I'm not explaining this because somebody asked for recording. I'm telling you, let's say, keep this in mind throughout your career. Pray and wish that you face difficulties. Again, yes, not let's say when you are on a project and other things, right? So for example, let's say whenever I was, let's say recently, right? So we had the lab practice for all our products, TX1 products. And when I was doing it, let's say I told the trainer, boss, I want to face as many problems as possible, because here, if everything runs smoothly, I know at customer side I'll face difficulties, because not everything is going to be very idealistic at a customer location. In lab, you might have prepared the perfect lab where everything works smoothly. But if I just follow this guide and achieve all these tasks, I just know how to do things, which is anyways already in the guide. I want to face difficulties. I want to face issues. Only then I'll become a better person who can understand these technologies. Yes, Ravindra, they are good. There are certain SOC related topics in Try Hack Me, so please go ahead and do them. There are some simple ones. We can start with the simple ones, and then it gets more and more difficult. All right. Coming back to the class. So I'll demonstrate it. Please make notes, and then you practice. Trust me, you are going to face lots of difficulties, and also trust me that you will never forget what you have learned. I have my, I think, let me switch on these two servers. So once you build the Windows machine, so the best way, I mean, let's say easiest way is to take an RDP. So remote desktop connection. So just type in RDP in your Windows. You'll get this. Put the IP address. So of the Active Directory, sorry, of the Nessus of the Windows server that you have built. Forget about the names. Don't worry about the names here. This is just for my reference. It's basically a Windows server in the backend. Okay. So I click on connect. I hope I remember my username. Okay, this is my Active Directory. What else is there? It's a instance in cloud. It's a Windows server. It's a Windows instance in cloud, which is again obviously a VMware. Okay, I know it is. What's happening? It's not. Did you reset the lab? Sorry, username. It was the same password. Maybe I have entered it wrong. If you have not reset the password, then the way to get the password is basically you have to go click on the Windows server, click on connect. Okay, go to RDP client and then click on get password. Once you click on get password, it will ask you for a file. It will ask you for a file. And when you submit the file, for example, here, it will ask you to upload the file. Remember, let's say we have to, for every instance, we have to use a key. Either you have to create a new one or use the existing one. I would recommend don't create more keys. Just create one key. One key is sufficient for all the machines. Or basically, you can create two. One for Windows, PEM file, and one for Linux, PPK file. Because Linux works on PPK files and Windows works on PEM files. Yeah, PEM file for Windows. Let's say, for example, tomorrow you want to build another Windows machine, use the same PEM file, same key. Third Windows machine, same PEM key, no problem. It will work. But you create another one like PPK. So another key called PPK sorry PPK extension, because for Linux, when you take the SSH session of Linux, you will need PPK files. With PEM also you can do it, but there is a lot of circus that you have to do to achieve it. To avoid that, just create two keys always. So I create AWS Windows, AWS Linux. Two keys will be using for respective purposes. Excellent, Ravi. Okay, and then you upload the file and click on decrypt, you will get the password. So what I have, you see here, mine I have used for this, it is a Windows key. What I have done is after logging in to this Active Directory, I have created a domain admin account. I have installed Active Directory on this. So the reason why I'm using a different username, that is, let's say my own user account, is because I created a new user. I created this user, and that's why I'm able to log in using this as a administrator So we have all the permissions. So I don't use the administrator account. I don't use this account. I use my own account. That's why I can set my own password. All right. So what do we do after this? Why I have to scroll here. Excellent. Okay. Please don't try to do it along with me. Focus here. If you try to do it along with me, you will be just stuck with your own problems and issues. So once you log into the server, just download, let's say Nessus. Nessus is free to scan up to 14 systems for free. You can download the Windows installer. If you are more familiar with other platforms, you can download the respective platforms. For example, if you want to run on Mac OS, you can do it. But ultimately, you would need Target. There is a if you're running on Linux, you can do using this tar file. But I'm running it on a 64-bit operating system, so I'll download this one. So I download it, and what you will need is basically to get an activation key. You will need to get an activation key. So either you can do it now here, or there is a dedicated link, get activation code. Earlier, it used to take Nessus Essentials. You take Nessus Essentials. Yes, scan 16 IPs. Okay. So register now. Just try here. Try giving your Gmail account. Let's see if it works. Otherwise, I can give you the code. Okay. Try using Gmail account here. Probably it might not take now. Earlier it used to take. Try it. If it works, it's really good. You will get a code for, let's say, within a few seconds in your email address. Otherwise, I can give you it requires a business email. Okay, no problem. I'll give you the code, the one that I have, very old key. So that should still work. Okay, so now that we have downloaded, and let's say whether we get the key or not, let's keep it aside. But we definitely need the installation file for Nessus. So if I go to my downloads, I have an Nessus downloaded on 9th of July. So this one. Okay. So for all good, what I did is basically take the remote access. Let's say there was a Windows server spinned up in AWS that we discussed yesterday. And after that, I took a remote access of my Windows server. Using a browser, I went to Nessus website and downloaded a Windows installer. Basically, I want to install Nessus on this server, so I downloaded the installation file. Simple so far. Don't make it over complicated. And I believe I already have Nessus on this server. Installation is next, click. So there's no thing. So it'll at the end of the installation, it will wait for compiling the plugins. It will take a long time, maybe half an hour or more than half an hour to compile the plugins. That is usual. And How do I access it? There is a different. Can anybody find? Let's say try to find the default port number for Nessus. Google it. Default port for Windows. Sorry, Nessus. '8834. Thank you. Okay. So now I'm able to access Nessus. It might go into plugins sometimes also because it's been a long time that I have not used it. You can use the same activation code. It should work for you as well. I'll ping the code in WhatsApp as well. All right. So the reason why I'm skipping the installation part is it's very simple. Next, click. There will be a part where you have to either get the activation code through the installation process, or because you have the activation code, just tick the box that I have the activation code and proceed further. Enter the activation code. It will ask you for the username and password, and then at the end it will stop at the phase where it says downloading and compiling plugins. It will take a long time. It's usual. That's why I completed the installation already. So it will take at least 30 to 40 minutes to compile. So it is common, and it is part of the process of installation for the first time. Okay, so what next? Now that I have logged in to Nessus, what do we do here? I have a target machine that I have a test machine to scan. So what do we have here in Nessus? We have the scan settings, right? So we can configure multiple scans, and then there is for each scan there are multiple plugins. So when I click on a new scan, for example, okay, am I not able to run a scan because of the license? Look, here it is. If I go for a new scan, here are all the templates, scan templates. Now, what is a scan template? Basically, templates are pre-configured scans. Pre-configured scans. So here is the host discovery. Remember yesterday, while talking about the vulnerability lifecycle, so the first one is basically to discover the assets, to discover what are the different hardware devices that you have in your network. So that's what is the discover phase. So every scanner, every vulnerability scanner will give you an option to do host discovery, which means you will be able to figure out all the assets in your network by doing this. Nothing else. You will not be able to find the vulnerabilities, nothing. You will be able to find the IP address. you'll be able to tell what kind of device it is, whether it is a Windows machine, Linux machine, what version of Windows machine, what version of Linux machine, is it a iOS or a router or a switch, right? So sometimes it will also be able to tell you whether it is a phone, IP phone, a camera, mobile device. So all these we will be able to discover through the host discovery scan. So typically we go with advanced scan. There are a lot of other, let's say, for example, I also talked about, let's say, ad hoc scans, right? Sometimes we will scan only for identifying specific vulnerability because it's a recently discovered vulnerability and we want to check whether one of our machine is vulnerable to that one specific vulnerability. So in such case, we'll go with, for example, here we have a WannaCry ransomware. So if you want to check whether any of your machine is vulnerable to WannaCry ransomware attack, right? So which is basically a Windows missing patch for SMB, then you just select this template and continue the scan. So give the target. I'll tell you how to fill this page, but basically, if I want to only scan for WannaCry ransomware vulnerability, I'll be using this template. So basically, these are ready templates that can be used. For now, what I'll be doing is I'll just go with the advanced scan because this will cover a lot of aspects of the scan. So once I go inside the scan, it'll ask for the details. Let's say here, test scan underscore SE 100th batch. Okay, scan on Metasploit table. Okay, okay, anyways. I'll put it under my scans. I can create multiple folders here and I can put them under different, for example, like say I'm the administrator of the entire company, sorry, vulnerability assessment administrator. I have 3 regions. I have assets in India, I have assets in Australia, I have assets in US, right? So and I'm responsible for scanning all these things. So I'll put them into separate groups, right? So India, US, and Australia, and I'll scan them accordingly. So I want to put it into different groups. So here I'll just leave it to default my let's say my scans. Target, this is where you have to tell what machines to scan. What are we doing right now? I'm configuring the advanced scan. Advanced scan is basically it will scan for everything. Plus it is highly customizable. I can customize all the things. So, but if when I'm telling it to scan, I also have to tell it what systems to scan. Right. So here, either we give the host name, list of all the host name. We can also import it. If you already have a list, I can import it here, or I can give one single IP address or a range of IP address. For example, 192.168.1.1 to 192.168.1.255. You see here, 192.168.1.1 to with this dash, sorry, with a dash there. I'm basically referring it's a range 192.168.1.255. That is how we can give the range. I'll talk about Metasploit in a while. That's our target system. I'll talk about it in a while. Okay. So name, it can be anything. Description, again, optional. If you want, you can give it. And then there is the target. This is obviously important. You are telling the Nessus what machines to scan. For example, if I'm running a Windows scan here, let's say Windows scan. So here I'll be giving the all the IP addresses or list of host names of Windows machines only, because I'm for example, WannaCry affected only Windows machine. If I want to do WannaCry scan, I don't have to scan for Linux machines because the vulnerability was not present in Linux. It was only present in Windows machine. So here we just say SC underscore 100 batch scan. Okay, so I'll have to give the IP address of my Metasploit table. So I named it as Linux server scan target. I'll take the private IP address. Always choose the private IP address when you are trying to communicate between the machines. You see, when I want to access, I'll use the public IP address. But when these two machines are communicating with each other, I'll always use private IP address because private IP address will not change. Public IP address, every time you reboot the server, the public IP address will change. So always rely on private IP address. So I take the private IP address of the Linux server that I want to scan and enter the IP address here. I can schedule it. That means I want to run it at a specific time on a regular basis. So for example, I want to run it monthly, right? So and day of the month, okay, every 2 months, 3 months, 4 months once, but I want to repeat it every month. I can select the time zone. For example, for me, it will be this one, and I want to run it at, let's say, start at 8 p.m. 8 p.m. is what? 20. And when does it start? It will start from, let's say, this Friday. I can do it, I think if I go for weekly, I can specify the day. Yeah. So for example, here, I can say it runs every Friday. Like this, I can schedule it. I don't want to schedule it right now. I mean, see, this is why we say that vulnerability management, the administrator role is very easy because we configure a scan and we just leave it. And every now and then, maybe once in a month or so, we might need to run ad hoc scan. Otherwise, everything is already pre-configured. And then I will give the credentials also. Can somebody quickly check the credentials for Metasploitable? Default credentials for Metasploitable. No, is it? Okay, that is surprising. Okay. I'll go with the, let's say, I want to give the credentials because when the scanner is able to log into the system, in this case, Nessus, I want to give the credentials so that it can log into the system. When I give the credentials, it will be able to do a better scan. It will be able to identify more vulnerabilities. So just give me a minute. I want to check whether the default credentials exists or not. Okay, so Come on. Okay. The default credentials do not work there. We'll see. We'll do it once without the password, or I can try to give the certificate. Metasploitable default login on AWS. Okay, I don't recall it, but I'll show you the difference with and without the credentials. So what I was doing is basically give the credentials here. So if I knew the credentials, I could have entered the credentials so that it can do a better scan. And then let's say I can let's say give what kind of assessment it wants. So do you want to do any kind of brute force? Let's say scan Windows application. So all these kind of things, scan for malware. It's optional settings that we can set. Let's say report, what kind of reports you want to create, and there's some advanced settings as well. Again, let's say the basic one that you need to understand is that we will be able to provide, first of all, choose a scan template. In this case, I am selecting an advanced scan. That is the template. Choose a template and provide the target. So these are the two important things. Plus, there is credential-based scan and non-credential scanning. So if you understand this, scan settings is good enough. So I'll save this. Okay, this is our scan here. And what I can do is I can run the scan. Either I can schedule it, but right now it is not scheduled. If you see here, so scheduled, it's on demand. So whenever I want, I will run it. So I can click on this launch button. If you see this triangle or a play icon, so this will begin scanning, begin the scan. Okay, so I started it today at 2:16. I think it's UTC time. It's reflecting there. Monthly on day 1 at 12:30. Okay. So if the scan is currently running, we can also observe the time it takes to complete the scan. It has identified one vulnerability so far, which is informational level, low level vulnerability, so not a problem for us. And after some times, we will come to a point where it will be able to show us this. It's the same metasploitable scan. Right, so on the same machine, I have run the scan. After the scan is complete, it's still running here. And if you see now, it has identified 11 vulnerabilities. So here, within this, there are 7 more. Say number of vulnerabilities is 3 here. So this is all Samba server detection. It's not a big deal, right? So the machine detected Samba server, which is fine. That's why it's an informational level vulnerability. It will take some time. It will take quite some time to finish the scan. But after it finishes, we'll come to a place where it will look something like this. The scan status will be, instead of running, it will be completed, and I'll be able to drill down into all these vulnerabilities. For example, we found that there is one FTP related vulnerability right? So I can click on that. I can get more details as to what it is. I can read the description, what will happen if I don't patch it. And they will also give you the suggestions. What is the solution here? So upgrade to Pro FTPT 1.3.5A or above, right? So what is our version, current version? Does it show here? No, that is not. There's a plugin version. This is not the. No, this is the plugin version. Plugin is basically to detect every vulnerability. To detect every vulnerability, you need to have a plugin, a corresponding plugin for that. Plugin is the name specific to Nessus. Otherwise, some people might call it as scripts. Typically, it should tell us here somewhere here. But anyways, we know that, let's say, this is older than that, and we need to upgrade it to either these two versions or later. And there's also a link that they'll share, typically the vendor link, where they'll be having more details about this particular vulnerability, which is not reachable now. No, it's there. It's the status of this vulnerability is closed, fixed, right? So all the details, what can be done with this. Resolved in 1.3.5A or 1.3.6 RC1, which is the same thing that they're telling here also. And this has appeared one time. The CVS score is 9.8. And here there are multiple vulnerabilities here. If you see, there is one with the 10, some issue with vulnerability in Drupal coder, module deserialization RCE and buffer overflows. Vulnerabilities are very dangerous. RCE is remote code execution. That means basically if attacker can take advantage of this vulnerability, he can execute code remotely. That means he can control the machine remotely. That's why any RCE and buffer overflows will always get above 9.5. For example, this one is 10. CVS score is 10. This is SQL injection related attack. So basically in a Drupal database. So if this vulnerability existed, again, how to exploit it, you don't have to worry. That is the attack. Sorry, that is the knowledge and duty of a penetration tester. In fact, this is a question that might also be asked in the interviewer. What's the difference between vulnerability assessment and penetration testing? Okay, so the difference is that the vulnerability assessment team will stop at identifying the vulnerabilities, whereas the penetration tester has to prove that it can be exploited. That means he has to take advantage of that vulnerability and prove that he can exploit it. Right. So of course he cannot damage the system because he is an authorized penetration tester. So he would have taken permission to hack into somebody's system, or the company has given the permission to hack into their own systems. So for example, if to prove that he has admin rights, he will go and create a new file in the root account in the root folder. So only administrator can do that. So that's just a demonstration. He cannot just bring down the server or shut down the machine. He cannot do that. He just have to show that he has admin privileges. So once we have it, let's say typically in the companies, right? So for example, here after running the scan, we identified around 36 vulnerabilities, right? So, but in companies, we don't run the scan on one machine. This is for one single machine. If you see here, number of hosts is 1. In companies, we don't run it on one single machine. On a regular basis, we run it on maybe hundreds and sometimes even thousands of machines. So the vulnerabilities will be in terms of thousands here, because if a specific vulnerability exists in one system, so possibly it is existing on all the machines. So one vulnerability means 1,000 vulnerabilities, right? So, and I can pull the report, let's say here. I can pull a report based on the complete list of vulnerabilities, which is a better one. And HTML is always good. So let me see what is happening. Generate report. I will share this report with you guys. The most important thing is this report, because configuration and all probably they might not ask us. So here it is. So if I have scanned 100 systems, a list of all the 100 IP addresses will be here. Okay, so and I can click on the specific machine and jump to the vulnerabilities of that particular machine itself. And I can click on show here and I'll be able to see everything. The same thing again, you're basically exporting it offline. So this I can use anywhere, right? So I don't have to log into Nessus in order to access this. Again, in order to get the more details, I can click on the plugin ID and I'll get the same information that it highlighted earlier. So what is the solution and what does it do? So all these things are here. Let's see where our scan has come now. I think it should be completed. No, it's still running. It has identified almost similar set of vulnerabilities. It will come back and stop at the same number, maybe 36. No credentials here. No, I have not done any credential scanning. Okay, that's a very good question, and that brings me to the explanation of what somebody asked earlier. What is metasploitable? So that's a really good point that Syed is making. Basically, this is a AWS, right? So AWS machines are always latest. They have kept the latest operating systems and everything. And that's why when we try to do the let's say demonstration earlier, when for the very first time when we started using AWS, when we scanned a few other machines, the easiest option is let's say on the AWS, create two machines, two Windows machines. On one, install the Nessus and scan the other machine. We did that, but we could not find any vulnerabilities because these are all latest versions of Windows. And AWS would have done a good job of applying all the patches with the images itself. So it's very difficult to find vulnerabilities in such kind of scenarios. That's why we used a server meant for hacking called Metasploitable. Metasploit is basically there are two things: Metasploit and Metasploitable. Metasploit is basically a framework of all the exploits. That means anytime you have a vulnerability, to take advantage of that vulnerability, you need to have an exploit kit. Okay, let me repeat that. So every time you have a vulnerability, you need an exploit kit to take advantage of that vulnerability. For example, if I tell you, okay, for example, here Suraj, this machine is vulnerable, hack it. How would I know? I mean, let's say either I have to be super technical in terms of understanding the vulnerability and what it works and everything. In that case, the attacks would have been very rare. That means because only sophisticated, advanced hacker could break in. But what these people do is, after they know that there is a vulnerability, in order to make it easier for others to exploit it, take advantage of it, they will create a kit. That is basically another software They will create a software which will do the job. All the technical details will already be included there. And I just have to pass this exploit kit to others. And this is a big business in the underworld of cyberspace, or the dark web or the deep web that we say. It's a huge business for hackers. That means if you identify a vulnerability and if you can create an exploit kit for it, you can sell that kit for huge money, like 200, 300, $500,000. And you can sell it to 100 people, 1,000 people. Any hacker who wants to buy it from you, they will pay you money and they will buy the exploit kit. Now, what's the advantage for the hacker? Why does he pay money to somebody, some other hacker to get the exploit kit? Because using this exploit kit, I can hack, let's say 1,000 other people and make, let's say I might have paid 100,000 for the exploit kit. I'll make more than a million using this exploit kit. Right. So that's how it works. So all these exploit kits that are developed and that is available publicly has been put into a framework called as Metasploit framework. Okay, it's a there's a paid version and the free version available in Kali Linux. Okay, and in order to practice, in order for the education purpose, in order to practice all these exploits, we need vulnerable system. For example, some of the vulnerabilities were identified in the very old versions of softwares, which probably people don't even use it today. For example, let's say Windows 7. Not too many people use Windows 7 today, right? So what they did was basically they created a machine that on purpose uses older softwares. They built a machine purposefully that uses older software so that we can practice hacking on it. So these machines were called as metasploitable. So there was one Windows version, one Linux version. So the one that I have built here is a Linux version. If you see here, this is Metasploitable 3 built on Ubuntu. That's why we're able to identify so many vulnerabilities. So this answers two questions. Why we are seeing vulnerabilities even though it's a AWS machine. Second, what is Metasploitable? Windows 7 is not having Eternal Blue. Eternal Blue is the exploit kit. Windows 7 is having a problem of SMB. There is an vulnerability in SMB. You cannot, Nikhil, you cannot do that. Okay, that's a good question. Now, yesterday when I tried to find the Metasploitable, I was unable to find it. Maybe they are removing it slowly on every region. I'm trying to find Metasploitable. Yeah, but I want it on AWS. Figure it out, guys. It was here. It was definitely there in Ohio. It was not there in let's say any of the let's say, for example, a lot of people tried it in Mumbai. It was not there. Let's see in US West Oregon if I can find it there. VA grant. Yeah, that makes sense to me, Gautam. That makes sense to me. That's what I was a little surprised to see MFS admin. VA grant makes sense to me now. Nothing here also. Jimmy, somebody has already answered your question earlier. They're talking about some Ravello. Okay. If anybody figures it out how to get a Metasploitable instance on AWS, just let us know in the WhatsApp group so that it will help others as well. So for now, what I can do is I can give you this report that I have generated. So you guys know how to run the scan now. And all you need to know is how to analyze the reports. Let me ping you this. Okay. I've given it in WhatsApp. I can give it here also if you would like it. Okay. So because I'm using the web browser, I think I'm not able to share it here. It's on WhatsApp, guys. Your friends will distribute it if you're not part of the WhatsApp group. Okay, so the important thing that you need to understand in this exercise is how to configure a scan. So basically, the way we configure a scan is we to choose the scan template first. For example, whenever I click on new scan, the first thing it is asking me to is to choose a scan template. So I choose a specific scan template, and then I configure the scan settings. The scan settings, the important thing that you have to tell is two things. One is the target. Name can be anything. Let's say, for example, here, let's say India servers. Right. So then I can create another scan for India workstations for all my workstations. Obviously, workstation scan has to be run during the business hours because workstation means user machines. User machines will only be active during business hours. Right. So I have to run the scan during that time. Or maybe I want to run it. I also have it in US, right? So US workstation, so I can name it accordingly so that I know exactly what is the scan configured for. After this, I will give the entire range. For example, 192.168.5.1 to 5.1 to 192.168.5.255 plus 192.168. Let's say after 5 was 7.1 to 192.168.7.255. Like this, maybe 4 or 5 ranges I will cover in order to cover all these US workstations. How do I get this? I will get it from my network engineer. My network engineer will tell me what are the different subnets in which user workstations exist. I really don't need to know each and every single IP address. Nessus will figure out. For example, in this IP address, in this 255 IP addresses, not all the IP addresses will be used. Maybe there are only 40 IP addresses. Nessus will figure out which 40 addresses are active, and it will scan those machines. I just have to give the entire range. Sometimes if you are not sure, what we do is we just give this 192.168.0.0 to 192.168.255.255. If I give this, it will scan, I think, at least 10, I don't know how many IP addresses it has. So you can check in class C IP addresses, private IP addresses. So many IP addresses are there in between this. Let me just tell you that as well, how many IP addresses. Number of private IP in class C. Okay, it is 65,536. 65,000 in class C, 192.168.0.02, 192.168.255, 65,536 IP addresses we are scanning here. Does that mean that we have 65,000 machines in our company? No. But because I don't know each and every single IP address, I'm scanning everything in my network. This is how we configure host discovery scan. This is how we configure the host discovery scan. That means I want to scan everything. And it will identify maybe 400 IP addresses because in our company we're using 400 systems. Okay, so this is also, so basically you need to know to give the right targets, and second is credentials. So if you want to have a credential based scanning, typically we give the domain credentials here, so that one credentials can work on all the systems. For example, on all the Windows machines, I'll create a domain account. I'll ask the administrator to create a domain account for scanning and with appropriate privileges. And I'll be using that account in my configuration. And once you do this, typically the scans are scheduled on a regular basis, monthly once it will be running. Automatically, it will generate a report. It will email the report to the vulnerability management administrator. And from there, the rest of the work starts. We start getting the report, we analyze the report, and we create, in fact, we take it in the CSV format. CSV format is easy to play around. CSV is nothing but Excel format. Let me open it on my system. The same information available in Excel format so that you can filter out. Right. So here I can say where the CVS score. I can say CVS score of only 7.5 and 9.8. Just show me these two vulnerabilities. Right. So and I can identify what machines are these. What machines are these? Of course, I am scanned it on only one system, but in the real world, I might get 20 different IP addresses here. And I identify all these machines and correspond to the respective. This is a CVE number. Okay. Correspond to the corresponding respective administrator and ask them to patch their system. What is the patch? Where is the patch available? Here in the solution part, it will be available. And once I get a message back from the administrator saying that I have patched it, I will again inform the let's say the vulnerability assessment team to scan the machine again. This time the machine should not come vulnerable to that specific vulnerability. That will kind of help us in terms of validating whether the patch has been successfully applied or not. For scanning web servers and URLs, we have a different thing. I think it is available in this. Let's see, but it's not free. You see here, you can audit your cloud infrastructure. There is an option for web server scan, web application tests. So here we can give the URLs. That is a good question, Gautam, but every now and then we definitely make use of credentials, not only for scanning, we use it for a lot of purposes. So it's a common practice that tool-to-tool communication will happen with some credentials. And it is, we call them as system accounts, system account or service accounts. Okay. For example, this one, service accounts cannot be used by users. Service account cannot be used by users, and they will have, let's say, typically it will be identified by an underscore SVR, SRV, something like that. I have seen a lot of companies follow that. For example, Nessus underscore SRV. That means it's a service account created for Nessus. Okay, and it will always, service accounts will have a mandatory of more than 16-digit password and then 16 character password, complex obviously. All these kind of things will be kept for service accounts. It is definitely made difficult to crack, but again, I'm not saying that it is not crackable, but it's just some precautions are taken for such accounts. Domain controller is a server. Active Directory is the domain controller. There will be a domain administrator. Domain administrator is not a service account, it's a user account used by the domain admin. Sandeep, what you are saying is the scanning performed from outside. Yes, that will be identified on firewall. A lot of firewalls today have the ability. If not, the web application firewalls can identify the scanning activity. Okay, that's a different story. That is the that is attack. Here we are scanning our own internal machines purposefully to identify the weaknesses so that they can patch them. Okay, this is one. In fact, a lot of times what happens is we trigger alerts for our internal scans also. SIM will detect whenever Nessus is doing the scan, it will detect that some attack is going on because it actually resembles the behavior of attack. So when there is a attack happening from external world to our internal side, we'll be able to detect it on our firewall and we'll be taking the appropriate actions. We'll talk about it, analysis and how do we work, what are the incidents, what are the different types of alerts we get. We'll talk about all these things. Okay, I'll stop here, guys. I know it will sound difficult and it is going to be difficult, but please complete this exercise. Okay, I know that, like say, there's still a question of whether Metasploitable is available on Amazon or not. Otherwise, also, I would still recommend you guys to create another instance and run a simple scan. You will find few information level vulnerabilities, not more. And it is okay to face difficulties, guys. The more difficulties you face, use Google first. Okay, try Google, try YouTube to find the fix. If not, then reach out to your peers in the group and somebody will be able to assist you. There are experts in AWS, better experts than me. Maybe somebody is already doing vulnerability management in their office, so they will be able to assist you here. Ravindra, let's say all the topics, the interview questions are already been given. Let's say the Udemy course has a dedicated module for vulnerability management. Fayaz, let's say installing it on a local machine and having a VMware, not everybody's machine is capable of doing it. Some people are running with 4 GB laptop, and especially with running Windows 10 and Windows 11 is very resource intensive operating systems. So within 4 GB laptop, we cannot do anything. So I wanted to show you how to use AWS so that you can use it for every other things that you want to do in your career, not only for this particular lab or this particular course. Once you get exposed to AWS, you can use it for a lot of other things as well. Metasploitable. Ankit, it is Metasploitable. You can Google about it. If you want to run all the labs effectively, you at least need 16 GB of RAM on your system. I know few people might have it, but most people will not have it. Okay, let's try to do that. Okay, create AWS account, install Windows Server, connect to Windows instance. for RDP, download Nessus, install Nessus. Use the option. I have a key. Somewhere you'll find an option where you either you have to register or you can just check a box. I have a registration key, so that it will just directly ask you for the key. Was it 8834? You can give it a try, Priyanka. The answer is obviously yes. You can definitely do it. It's going to be extremely slow. Learn to use AWS. It's going to help you for especially who are young in your careers. I would strongly recommend you to learn how to use AWS. It is going to save you a lot of time throughout your career. Okay, so these are the steps that we did. If you want me to talk about any of the specific step, I can talk about it. If you don't find Metasploitable, just install some other Windows or Linux version. Try to scan. But the problem is you will not be able to find vulnerabilities because AWS always keeps the latest image with all the patches and hotfixes applied. So you will not be able to find any vulnerabilities. I'll try to figure out if where the Metasploitable is. Try in different regions, guys. That is the trick. Last time when somebody tried to do it in Asia Pacific, Mumbai, data center in AWS. It was not available, but it was available in Ohio. So check it in different regions in AWS. Top right, you have the list. Which Jamal, that will definitely help. Tell me which region you are looking at. Can you tell me what you see here on the extreme right here? Hmm. Yeah, you're talking about Metasploit framework. Metasploit framework will be available. It's okay. Let's see. It was there here. Why they removed it? I don't understand. Maybe some policies or something like that. It used to come in either communities or marketplace. It used to be there. Okay. EU West, EU West one. Okay, let's try in Europe. No, Prashant, I don't see it here. Try to figure it, guys. There should be somewhere it will be available. Otherwise, the other alternate option is just install a separate. Yeah, we'll just install a Linux version, Linux instance. You just need to know how to run the scan. You don't have to, for the vulnerabilities, anyways, I have shared you the report. Use that report. to look at the vulnerabilities. All right, guys. So thank you very much. You guys have an excellent day. Please practice. Practice is what is going to get you more confidence. And if you can practice, you will be able to talk about it more, let's say, in detail, and also answer all the other questions surrounding the topic. Plus, if you do and learn on it, learn things on your own, you'll definitely be able to have a greater recall. You'll be able to explain it more confidently. So hope and pray that you face a lot of difficulties, because that is what is going to make you a better technical person. Not only now in this labs, in all the labs that you do, always expect to face difficulties, so that the more you practice, the more you bleed in practice. What is that? The more you sweat in practice, the less you bleed in the war. So when you do your real job, you will not face much difficulties, and even if you face difficulties, you already have faced it earlier and you can easily resolve it. Assignment for vulnerability management. I think there is an assignment in the Magic Portal, so I can take that. Yes, Magic. I can share it with you. I think there's a really good assignment for vulnerability management, so please do complete it. Okay, I'll share it for people who don't have access. I'll share the file with you in some time. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.